What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with 150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler, who is down in the Valley of the Sun, calling the game for the Suns and the Celtics tonight. How are you doing, Legs?
I'm great, man. I just want to start right off the bat. I'm jumping into these messages because someone is questioning our punctuality, and that's upsetting to me because if people knew the amount of preparation and detail that goes into this, 1 hour of just, to me, is basketball nirvana. I don't think 2 to 3 minutes should be questioned.
Well, that's also the beauty of the internet. You know what? The show comes to you when it comes to you. We got a great show for you today, though. To Legs' point, we got a lot of topics. Today's some days we like to go deep on an individual game or two. Some days we want to hit on a bunch of topics. We're going to talk about Damian Lillard. Jimmy Butler made his return. Jonathan Kuminga not quite fitting in with the Warriors. Very curious to hear what Legs has to say about that. And then we're going to run through a bunch of the games that happened last night and some big takeaways before giving our shout-outs. So we're going to get a lot. We got a full slate, but we're going to start with the big headline news here, which is Damian Lillard is out indefinitely, they say, indefinitely. But I think we know because it's blood clots, which, by the way, I don't remember this being a thing players got, prior to maybe 5-6 years ago. Now it's becoming more and more common, it seems. But Damian Lillard out indefinitely, and Legs, just going off the timeline of other guys who've had blood clots, obviously it sounds like he's going to be for the entire year. So this is huge news. What did you make when you saw this come across your timeline?
Well, first of all, the fact that you're, seeing, deep thrombosis, just that you're seeing that again. When
never heard that word.
A lot of people never heard that terminology before. We just got it with Victor Wembanyama, right? That's exactly what his issue is now. Different part of the body. Wemby's is more up, I guess, in his shoulder area, right? Is this Lillard's calf, I believe?
I think so, yeah.
So that's the first thing that jumped out to me. Like, my goodness, like this is kind of wild. Like this to see something like that. It seems so rare when you heard Wembanyama get it. And now here's another star player with the same condition. It's going to shut him down for the year without question. It's going to derail their chances, in my opinion, because I don't care now if they play Indiana or if they slide to the 6, they play New York. Most likely going to be one of those two teams. I don't see them getting past them without Damian Lillard. But more importantly, Adam, what does this mean for the Bucks and for Lillard long term? His statement. If people didn't see it, man, like it didn't sound like he was like retiring or anything, but it was definitely something that has scared him, as it probably should and would all of us. And it just, the way he was talking about it was like a resignation almost to like what this could mean. And he was talking about the things that really do matter more, prioritizing your family, your health, being there for your kids, long term. And he was talking about stuff like that. Rather, most guys maybe in this situation are just like, hey, this is, didn't see this one coming. I got to step away now to deal with this. And we're going to do everything we can to get myself right. And he wasn't talking like that. He was talking more like I said, a resignation to like how serious this is and what it means long-term for the Bucks. So forget about this year. They're still going to have there. They have Giannis. They're going to fight. I don't think they're going to be good enough to win a round. But what about beyond this year? I think that's your big question, right?
I think 100% it is, because I'm with you. This year, I wasn't really believing in the Bucks anyway. Just the road they would have had to have gone was going to be really tough. Probably three tough rounds just to get out of the Eastern Conference. That's tough for anyone. And then just not buying their team. But if we just step back, Dame's 34 years old. He turns 35 in July. His time since leaving Portland, it's been very uneven. Obviously, this adjustment to Milwaukee, there were stories he didn't necessarily want to go. He was trying to get to Miami, winds up in Milwaukee. It hasn't really clicked. Injuries, some things have happened to the team. And now you look at another year where I just don't think we can say we know what this version of the Bucks really was or could have done. You judge a team by their playoff success. They didn't get an opportunity last year. They're not going to get an opportunity this year. And then you look forward and say, okay, he's 35. To your point, he has to have a sense of just the clock ticking, even if it's not retirement. Like, okay, well, where am I at in my career? And what do the Bucks do? How do you make decisions? If you're a front office, how do you make major decisions when you say we've never seen what this team does in the playoffs? How do you go forward with that?
That's a great question, because you're right. Because Giannis got his title, the Bucks got their title, and then it was the way the landscape had changed in the NBA at that point. It was obvious they needed another star. They went out, they acquired Damian Lillard, thinking like, man, that's the perfect pairing. You got this dominant power force in Giannis, and it just kind of dominates you in a way that's so unique to him in the league. Now we're going to go pair him with not only one of the great perimeter scorers in this league, but I think the biggest reason they brought him in was because of Damian Lillard's track record under pressure in the postseason. Now, they were never able to really break through in Portland because those teams were never good enough relative to the rest of the Western Conference. But you weren't putting that on Damian Lillard. I mean, you look at the way he performed in big spots in the postseason throughout his career. That is what they brought Damian Lillard in to do. Like, be there in game 6s and game 7s to take the pressure off of Giannis, who could struggle in certain moments earlier in his career, with just not being able to shoot the ball outside the lane or not making free throws. Well, now you brought in a guy that, like, hey, this is how we're going to close matters now. We have Damian Lillard, and it just never really has taken flight. I mean, they've had stretches where they played together. They've had stretches where they looked really, really good, and you're like, man, this team's relevant in the East, but never really a long, sustained stretch, and now you get this. And it's you talk about like just a gut punch to the organization, to Giannis, like to what the Bucks are sitting here thinking as we sit here right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You look at their salary cap sheet. He has a player option in 2026, 27. So next year is effectively a year, the last year you kind of know you control, his salary. Brook Lopez is expiring this year. He's up for a new deal. Kevin Porter's been an incredibly important piece of their team. He has a player option. I'm sure he'll opt out of next year. Gary Trent was a 1-year signing. Taurean Prince, a 1-year signing. So their entire roster next year is just a big mystery box. And for me, that's a really, really tough one. Giannis is in his prime. In fact, you could say he's on the downward part of his prime, being 30 years old. Not that he's getting worse, but that he is past the halfway point of like the peak, the peak of your prime. I don't know what you think in today's NBA. I think the peak of your prime is around 30 years old. So now it's not, he'll be in this level probably for the next 3-4 years, something like that. But we're past the halfway point of it. And that that's tough. So I don't know.
For me, and I've kind of used this definition for a long time. I think your prime, like when you are that period of time when you were absolutely at your best, is like 25 to 32. Because I think by 25, you're starting to mature. Some of the stuff that mattered a lot to you when you came into the league, maybe you view a little bit differently. Numbers and accolades and money. By that time, a lot of these guys, they're on their second contract. So they've gotten, that big payday, past their rookie deal. And you've added a lot to your game by the age of 25, but then, that's not your best. That comes in your late 20s up to about 30, 31 years old, when you've combined everything, physical strength, you've added skill, you have a better perspective on the game. But you're also your most productive typically. So that to me is where I would view it. And I think Giannis, was he 30? So he's got a couple more years in that range. And look, some guys are freaks. I mean, LeBron's lasted longer than that, but that's a rarity. But for the most part, I think those are your absolute peak years. So yeah, it's fair to say Giannis is still in that zone, but he is definitely closer to the end of that zone than the beginning. Still a dominant player, but it's not going to be enough with that roster and Giannis Antetokounmpo to make it run at teams like Boston and Cleveland. It's that simple.
And we look at them right now, 31 losses. The Detroit Pistons in the 6th seed are 32 losses. So, and they're really tied. I think Detroit has played 2 more games than Milwaukee. But in the loss column, that's what we really have to count this time of year. Milwaukee has 1 less loss. But I'm with you. If I was projecting forward now, Milwaukee's in Denver tonight. We're not sure what Jokic's status is. I kind of have a hunch he's not going to play, but I think he was listed as doubtful actually coming into on yesterday's injury report. But so they might get the win tonight, but you look at it now and just say, as shorthanded as they are, and as much of a morale hit this is, losing him, I think there's a morale hit to a team because the team knows what their ceiling is when they lose their second best player. I look at it and I go, I think they are going to be the 6th seed. I think Detroit now has a real chance of passing them and Milwaukee falling all the way to the 6.
Let me ask you a question, man. I don't think, who knows how long ultimately Lillard's out. Who knows? Maybe he comes back at the start of next year. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the treatment for this. I don't know how long that takes. I don't know how long he's going to be on blood thinners. It's dangerous to play a sporting event when you're on blood thinners. That's the whole point of why these guys get shut down, that those have to take effect. I don't know how long, he's in that danger zone. I'm not a doctor. I don't know the answers to that. Is he back at the beginning of next year? Maybe. If they think the Bucks, through whatever information, they get, that Damian Lillard potentially is out a lot longer than that, or potentially this is some sort of a career-altering thing with him, do you think they would ever consider trading Giannis and going the rebuild? Listen, think about what I'm talking about. Like some of these younger teams that are good and talented and maybe have one guy already that's kind of tracking toward like a perennial all-star or a star, an all-league type player, and you add Giannis to that and give up. Most of those teams like Detroit's and the Houston's, they have a lot of young assets. They've got interesting players, and you would go that route. I'm saying if they got news that made them think that Damian Lillard potentially was going to have, an issue continuing his career. I'm not saying that is the case, but if that were the case, do you think the Bucks would do that? Or you just ride this out with Giannis as long as you can?
I think when you have a player of Giannis's caliber, you don't trade him. This is why the Luka Doncic thing was so crazy, is because it's easier to figure it out, even on the fly, even with a ticking clock and, we only have a couple years. It's easier when you have a Giannis already on your roster than it is to say, hey, how many picks can we get? Let's take a shot at this in the future. But what changes that equation really is if Giannis asks out. And Giannis has made comments in the past that just put pressure on the organization saying like, hey, man, I'm here to win. Like I'm here giving you guys my all. You got to give me your all. And this is something that's out of Milwaukee's hands. This is not something, they brought him Damian Lillard. You could say you didn't like the trade, some of the moves they made. I understand that, but they brought in Damian Lillard to say, we want to win now too. So the only way this happens, in my opinion, is if he asks out, but that's a thing that I think he's going to have to really, I would not be surprised if that happened this summer. I hate talking about this stuff because I feel bad for Milwaukee fans. Nobody likes to hear about their star player potentially asking out when they haven't done it yet.
I feel bad for Lillard, man. Damian Lillard, by all accounts, man, is a good dude. Like he's for a guy that's he's attained that legitimate star status in this league for a long time. He's a fairly low maintenance guy with regard to the locker room and coachability and stuff like that. He's got a very stoic, quiet demeanor. I think Giannis could probably be a little bit more of a handful, it sounds like, with certain things, and the diva type stuff. I mean, like a lot of star players in this league. Lillard's not like that. And he had a terrible year last year in terms of stuff that was going off the court. He went through a divorce that was very difficult for him, managing the kids being on the West Coast while he was playing Milwaukee. Like that stuff became public knowledge. He went through a lot. And this year, apparently, he was in a much better place mentally. He was much happier. And he was able to just focus on basketball again because his personal life seemed to be more in order. And you feel bad for him, man. Like I couldn't imagine getting that news. Like from a doctor, if I was playing, like it's scary, man. Like you don't even know that this was possible for you. Athletes do come to view themselves as impervious to this kind of stuff. Yeah. You just do. You just don't. You're just so used to doing whatever you want physically all the time, and so to get news like that, it's got to be scary for him, for his family. That's probably my first thought went out just to him in that regard. Yeah, man, can you imagine being that age and finding that out and scary. Like you don't know exactly what the future is going to hold right now. So. Hopefully, this is something that can allow him to return to the court next year. But I think for this year, I don't know how Milwaukee overcomes it.
This is why, we really have become a championship or bust league, like the way it's talked about. It's so hard to win a championship, especially as a mid-sized market, because not only do you have to build a perfect roster, not just your top player, your sidekick, you have to have the right players around them, but then you just have to pray for good luck. And I don't think Milwaukee has built the best roster. but they haven't had luck. I mean, there's been no luck to them over the last couple of years, and that's just a really tough spot for them to be in. Let's talk about another game, though, or another team, rather, and that is the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors. They made a trade, I don't know if you heard about a month ago, sending Jimmy Butler from Miami to Golden State. Well, Jimmy Butler made his return. First thing I'm going to ask you, the crowd, in my opinion, and I couldn't believe there was a controversy online. In my opinion, the crowd seemed to have a cold welcome to Jimmy Butler. There were some people cheering, but I thought it was mostly like a contentious, which is what I would have expected.
Yeah, I from what I gathered, and it's hard sometimes to pick up on TV, and I was actually at a dinner like that we usually have the night before we call a game. So it was, just conversation going on. You're not totally dialed into the crowd sounds. But when I watched back some of it this morning, just especially the beginning of the first quarter, it seemed like they were coming at him pretty hard. I know they did play the video tribute for him and his moments in Miami. Yeah, I guess you have to. I know they didn't want to. I don't know who got that assignment for the Heat, but I know they didn't want to do that. But here's my overall big point with this game. Come on, Jimmy Butler.
Ooh.
Come on, man. Like you're telling me all that went down, that what you did to that franchise on your way out the door, like you show up for this game, you don't have Steph Curry. All your comments are, oh, it's just another game, just another game. Come on, man. Don't give me that. Give me 35 last night. Yeah. Give me 35, and hopefully you win the game. Maybe not. It's a road game without Steph. I get that. You might not win the game. Come on. The passivity with which he played, 11 points, didn't look like it mattered to him at all. I'm sorry, man. If you go out the way he went out, he got suspended 3 times in a month. If you go out that way, okay, and you just basically force the organization's hand, you force Pat Riley's hand, you force Pat Riley to really be embarrassed because of his own words he had to eat. You force that to happen. You go back there and you treat it like it's a preseason game? I'm sorry, man. You got to give me more than that. You got to give me more than that. And it was almost like he went so far above and beyond to downplay the significance of this. I'm sorry. That bothers me a lot. I want dudes. No, man.
I love this.
You acted that way. I want to hear you talking trash 2 days before the game. I want to hear you talking about what you're about to do to them. I want to see you come out and take 10 shots in the first quarter. And maybe you have an off night and it doesn't happen. I'll live with all right, whatever. As a fan, as an analyst, I'll live with that. But you can't come out there and tiptoe around and act like the game isn't important. Yeah. I'm sorry. That's just weak. That bothers me a lot.
It's funny because in the lead up to the game, he did downplay it as just another game, but it almost felt like provoking, like he was like, those guys over there, it's just another team, whatever. Like almost like he was trying to like poke the bear. But to your point, he came out and played this game like he really meant it. It was just another game and one that he would gladly take off. He had 11 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, was a minus 19 in his 29 minutes. The story of the game, Miami Heat just shot the leather off the ball, 17 of 25 from 3, 68%. And Tyler Hero, I thought Tyler Hero was great. 20.7 assists, 4 for 4 from the 3-point line. So this is what's funny. You would think Jimmy Butler would take it seriously, but I actually thought that Miami was dialed for this game. They've been playing terribly.
No
this
question.
Game they were so focused for.
Yeah, good for them. That's how it should be. This dude laid down the gauntlet for the whole organization. You're damn right. They should have circled that game immediately when he left and played exactly like they did. Kudos to the Heat. And also, by the way, after the game, not that you're going to go out there and be all super warm and fuzzy and the Warriors lost, but Jimmy Butler, who was out of the game because the game was over by early fourth quarter, he sat most of the fourth quarter on the bench. He just got up and went straight to the locker room.
Yeah.
So, like, it told me a little something about the dynamics between him and the guys on the team. Because I was asking somebody that knows the organization really, really well. I was just asking him this question. Okay, I get how Spoelstra might feel, how Riley might feel. I get all that. What about the dudes on the team, though? That's always a different component because a lot of players always view this stuff as, man, it's business, man. It's you got to do what you got to do. Like force your way out, sign with another team. Like whatever it is you do, man. And like we were teammates. We gelled, we bonded. I'm still going to have, care for you when I see you, regardless of the circumstances. It didn't feel that way to me. Now, maybe it's because I said he didn't do anything in the game. The Warriors lost the game. It wasn't a competitive game. So he just wanted to get the hell out of there. And he got up and went, maybe that's what it was. But at the same time, even that, like that image you're sending is, no, man, like done with them, dead to me. Well, you didn't play that way. You didn't play that way. Like, it's, you mentioned he had 11 points. Adam, he had 2 for, I don't even remember when he got his next points after those 2 points. He had 2 points, I think most of the first half, if not the entire half.
Yeah.
So it was like at no point did you come out, walk in there, lift your leg and mark your territory like dogs do, like my dog does when he goes on a walk. And we go down the end of the street and he got that 1 yard and that one bush. And he wants that dog in that house to know he came by. Oh, get us here now. Get us here now. That's what Giannis is saying to the neighborhood. Where's Jimmy Butler? Where is that, man? Where's that alpha killer stuff? Come on. I had a problem with it. I'm sorry. I wanted, not that he's going to play great, but you got to at least act like this does matter, man. I'm coming in here. I know the environment, and I'm going to do some work. And he just looked like it wasn't very important to him at all. And that's just, I don't know, man. Am I right? Are people agreeing with me out there? I'm not looking at the chat room. Do you agree with me? Do you want to see when this stuff goes down, that guy return? Like, remember when Durant went back to OKC? Do you remember when he left?
I don't know if I remember the game, actually.
Do you not remember what Westbrook had for him when he came in there? The screaming match they got into on the court.
That's right.
Durant and him jawing at each other. And I was honestly proud of Westbrook because I like that approach, man. No, you chose to leave me. Right. So I'm going to show you what's what when you come back here. But at the same time, Durant also had that mentality. And he loved the organization, man. He loved playing there. But it ran its course. He left. He made a tough decision. He went and joined the team that they were trying to get past. It was a blow to the organization, to Westbrook. But Durant didn't come in there like, oh, man, it's just another game. I'm going to give you 14, 15 tonight. No, he wanted 40. He wanted 40 in that game. And that's what I'd like to see in a situation like this, because it was so ugly when it broke down in Miami.
Well, one other thing. Well, by the way, it was an important game for Golden State, who now falls to 31 losses, tied with the Clippers and just 1 game ahead of the Timberwolves. I mean, the stakes for the Warriors on every single night are so huge right now. You can find yourself in the play-in and on the road in the play-in if you're not careful. Just 1 game separating, actually a half game separating them and the Timberwolves. So it was a game that they should have had a win, and they ended up getting a blowout loss. I want to ask you one other thing, though, about this Warriors team and some of this, I don't know if this is confirmation bias because it was something I believed, and I know we kind of disagreed with it, but Jonathan Kuminga, for all of his talents, I just hate the way he plays basketball, and in particular on this team. And since he's been back, they're 4-3, I believe, after having that really, really hot streak. But watch it last night. Look, there's no Steph Curry, and I think the Warriors are the toughest team when they don't have their star. Them and the Nuggets, because their star is so, changes. It's a unique style of play. So he's not there. Okay, you understand it. He just looks lost. He catches the ball. He holds it for long periods of time. His ISOs take forever. He cuts into weird spaces. It almost seems like his return has coincided with the Warriors losing their mojo that they had found.
I mean, well, only thing I will say this, they're 4-3 since he came back. It's not like they're 1-6. I mean, they're 4-3 since they came back. I agree with you, but I think this has been the problem with Kuminga from the beginning. When I first saw him, and he really caught my eye in Vegas Summer League, going into his rookie year. And I was like, man, this dude, they don't have that kind of athleticism on that team. They need this. And he tantalized you early. But what I started to see over time, the main thing that I picked up on was, it was obvious to me, those first couple of years in particular, Steve Kerr did not trust him.
Yeah.
Because he would play during the season, a month would go by, he'd play 25 minutes a game for a month and be putting up, regularly in the teens, get some games in the 20s, highlight reel type stuff. Deeper they got into the season, less and less minutes, the less you saw of him, the less important he was to them because he didn't trust them. I don't think Steve Kerr trusts his overall basketball IQ. I don't think he trusts necessarily his grind it mentality. I don't think it's where they would like it to be, because if it was, he would have added more of a handle. He would have added more of ability to shoot mid-range shots which elite wings in this league do. He hasn't really done that. He gets by on athletic ability, period. End of story. So I think their frustration has really run its course. This bad part, though, for them, Adam, they need him. They need him. They need his production. There are things he can do individually, athletically, in transition, and even in a half court that they don't have other guys that can do. So maybe he doesn't fit great. Maybe they don't trust him. Maybe there's some things about him that irritate them, whatever. But it's like, man, we certainly do need that 15 to 20 every night, though. So they're in a tough spot. I totally agree with what you're saying. And it looks to me like even last night, he had a 3-point play. And I just looked at the reaction of the 4 guys on the court.
This is the thing. This is the thing, man.
The only guy that dapped him up, he shot a runner coming from the left wing into the lane, right? And he got hit and he made a tough shot in the paint. And his momentum continued after the whistle toward the right wing area where Podziemski was. And it looked like that's the only reason Podziemski dapped him up, was because he was walking right toward him. So he put his hand out and he dapped him. And then Kuminga turned around, went back to the line. There were 3 other dudes on the court. 2 of them were in the lane, I think. 1 was on the other wing. They didn't really do that. You know, guys get a 3-point play in this league. Typically, all 4 guys are going to meet you at the foul line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what happens.
This is something, man. This is a real thing.
Yeah. So I don't know. And look, you know, the thing is, I know people in that organization, but they're reluctant, obviously, to really go, you know, off the record and really say everything. So I don't know. I really don't, man. And that's one team that I feel like I'm as dialed in with that team. If I want information, I can get that information. And I think there's a reluctance, but it's obvious to me the way he plays, his fit, just the reaction, the cohesion with other guys. There's something not there. And it's a shame for the Warriors because they need Jonathan Kuminga, I think, to be able to actually, you know, beat a team in the playoffs in a series and make a run at all. I think you need him.
You mentioned his athleticism, but he's also very talented. Just like he has like a natural talent to him too. He has a good looking shot. He knows how to dribble. When it comes together for him, it looks amazing. But to your point, the team aspect of it, the desire and some of those things. And here's my last question, then we got to move on. But is it possible? I agree with you that they need him if they're going to be their best self. But is it possible they get to a point in a playoff series where he just doesn't play? Because they know they're going to get the things they want. Maybe not as high of a production level, but they're going to go with the system and this Santos and Quentin Post and all the other guys that they bring in, Podziemski, Moody. They know those guys will just run the system. Is there any chance he collects a DNP in the playoffs?
There's one reason that won't happen. They do not have full level trust in the consistency of Buddy Hield. And that is the main reason. If Buddy Hield was somebody they felt like they could rely on every night to get those 20 to 30 minutes and give you consistent production, I think maybe you do. You play a little bit smaller on the wing. You go more with the guys that you think have a higher IQ for the game, and you win that way. I think the fact that they don't have enough of those guys on the team that you can pencil it in exactly what you're going to get night to night, the Gary Paytons of the world, the Moses Moody's of the world, Buddy Hields, those guys, it's like hit or miss every night. Payton gives you great defense every night, but I'm saying, okay, you need points in this league to score, to win. You need to get into that 115, 120 range most nights. Even in the playoffs, you're going to need that anymore in the NBA. Kuminga represents that tantalizing talent that can do that. He can win certain matchups those guys can't. If they had more of that, of those guys I just mentioned, it's possible. They just look at the risk reward and say, you know what? I think I'll roll the dice with what we have with these guys because he's messing up the flow of the game. And we don't know how dialed in he is, you know, between the ears to the game plan and all of that stuff. But I don't think they get that from those guys.
Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think he does. I think he collects a DNP in the playoffs just for this very reason. The Warriors, to me, are so good when everybody's pulling in the same direction. Draymond, Jimmy Butler, and Steph Curry, above all, they know how to win games, but you need everybody just kind of doing their part, and I think they'll get to the
wait
point
a
where
second, though. It's a little pillowy.
Oh, my gosh. How so? I'm talking about benching a guy.
I know that because you can't say guy's going to get a DNP. They're not going to give guy one DNP. You're saying take him out of the rotation.
Yeah. I'm saying I think there'll be a game. Maybe it's like a game 4,
no.
game 5,
okay,
and it's going to be
can't say a game. You don't do that for a game. If you do that, you're going down that road for the postseason.
I think it will happen. I'll just say this for the remainder of a series. So maybe that's game 6 and that's the last game of a series, but or maybe it's game 5, 6, but I think at some point they're going to say, you know what? Not this time. We got to just focus on,
I can't wait. We'll revisit this one because like I said, I don't know they'll get to that point with him.
Okay.
Now you might, maybe his minutes are cut down to 15, 18, something like that, but I don't know they'll get to that point.
Man, I went out on a limb. That was a bold take. No, more likely to be wrong than right on this one. All right, whatever. I'll stand by it. Let's take a break. On the other side, we're going to run through the slate of games that happened last night because I have some thoughts on the Thunder, got some thoughts on the Knicks and the Mavs. I want to get Legs' thoughts on all those teams as well as the Rockets, the Cavs, and Blazers. First, guys, Lucy nicotine is 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free, available in pouches, gum, and these new breakers. Breakers are like pouches, but they have a capsule of liquid flavor inside that helps saturate the pouch. Breakers are available in 4 milligrams and 8 milligrams. They also have these flavors: mint, berry, citrus, espresso, and so much more. Or you can just go with the traditional pouches, which are all the rage. They go all the way up to 12 milligrams, which seems like a lot. And if you're not a pouch guy or gal, Lucy Gum is available in 2 milligram, 4 milligram, and 6 milligram. You can set yourself up with a subscription so you have it delivered straight to your door. You don't have to go to the gas station every single week or whatever it is you do. So level up your nicotine routine with Lucy. Go to lucy.co/allnba and use our promo code AllNBA to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use the code AllNBA to get 20% off and always free shipping. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Also want to tell you guys about Monarch Money. Finances can be messy and confusing. Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. Here's one thing I know. One of the things I always say, it's like a mantra I have, is what you measure is what you manage. Meaning if you're not paying attention and measuring progress in any given thing, or just tracking, in this case, what you're spending, where your investments are going, are they growing? If you're not measuring it, you're not really managing it. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. It helps you manage your investments, manage your budget, find out where you're spending money, track where you're spending money. Are you eating out too much? Are you spending too much on this or that? Or, putting things to the side? Or your investments not going the way that you think they are in the back of your head? Well, Monarch Money can help you. They're a finance tool people actually love. You can join over 1 million households. They were named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, the top recommended personal finance app by users and experts with over 30,000 five-star reviews. And it's got a whole bunch of features that are going to help you track your money and your investments. Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use the code AllNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at monarchmoney.com with our code AllNBA. All right, back here in the All-NBA show, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss anything. We're very close to the playoffs. Only heats up from here. You're not going to want to miss the conversation. Let's go really quickly around the association here, Legs, because there were some games that happened last night. The Rockets beat the Hawks 121-114. I'd say this is a good win. That's a good win. What do you take away from the Rockets getting a win? They had the slide against Denver, but since then they're back on track.
How about they went through their rough patch, and everybody's going to do it. They were a great story first half of the season. Spent most of that time 2 or 3 in the Western Conference. We're getting a lot of love, praise. Then they hit a rough patch, and they struggled. They particularly struggled in fourth quarters of games for a while there. Guess what, man? You look up here, they've won 10 out of 11. They're 10 out of the last 11, man, and they're 2 in the West, right?
Yeah, they're 2. They got a full game lead
in the Western Conference when it all said and done. So I think for me, this is a good sign, the resiliency and the bounce back factor, man, because it's one thing to kind of catch people a little bit by surprise and have a great start to the year for different reasons. And then you hit that rough patch, and it's like, are you now reverting back to like the norm, like you really are, which is maybe, are you a 44-win team really? No, they're not. They're better than that. And they've proven that because they bounced back. Now, Fred VanVleet coming back was a big part of that. Some of those games they were losing at that time and couldn't close, Fred VanVleet wasn't playing. he's very important for them to organize. He's smart. He's stable. He's strong with the ball. And he's got obviously a lot of important big game experience, having played such a big role in that title team in Toronto. So he's good under pressure, and they didn't have him for a while. They were losing games. He's back and they're rolling. You're right. Atlanta, any night you beat Atlanta is a good win, because on any night that team can light you up. Now, they don't have the consistency to be a real factor in the East, but on any one night that you get them, and they've proven this with some of the wins they've had this year, they can drop 130 on you if you're not ready to play. So I think this is, like you said, a quality win for Houston. They keep it rolling, and lo and behold, you look up with 10 games to go in the season, and they're 2 in the Western Conference.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I had one other note. Oh, one other thing. So yesterday on the show, we talked about the Houston Rockets, or maybe it was earlier in the week, and I talked about them playing a double big lineup that had Segun and Steven Adams. They rolled it out against Denver. Denver, not without Jokic, Denver can't rebound. And somebody from Houston reached out to me and sent me a really good note showing that they have actually played well over now 200 possessions together with Segun and Steven Adams on the floor. I have no idea how viable this is. But Ime Udoka just talked about, hey, we want to experiment with different lineups. We want to see what can we do there to put pressure physically on offensive boards and different things. What do you make of that? We see a lot of small ball legs, but we don't see a lot of, hey, just 2 traditional centers. Let's try them out and just punish everybody on the glass.
I think part of it is because their 3-point shooting is so anemic anyway, that I think part of them feels like, hey, let's give teams a different look, and they can be a dominant offensive rebounding team. They already were playing smaller. This can be a different look for teams, because otherwise, maybe those minutes go to another wing that's spacing out the floor and capable of making 3-point shots. So let's try this look. And it's been fairly effective for them. I don't know the viability of this in the postseason. Depending on who they play and how fast the game is, that could be very difficult for them. But by the way, one last point in this game for me, every night you look around the league, and there was a big slate last night. Most fun player of the night award goes to Jalen Green. I mean,
okay.
Jalen Green had a night, man.
He's on fire.
He had some electrifying poster type dunks, 32 points, 11 boards. He has that type of electric talent, and he puts it on display some nights. And for me, looking all around the league, and I didn't see every game, obviously. I tried to catch as much of the highlights as I could. Jalen Green was putting on a show last night for Houston.
Yeah. The other game I want to go to is the Cavs, 122-111 over the Portland Trailblazers. Cavs need some stabilizing wins. I think they need some stabilizing wins. No Donovan Mitchell in this one, but no problem. They get it done. Any thoughts on this one from either side?
I just think it's important that they won this game on the end of this 5-game road trip. They lost to Orlando at home, and then they lost their first 3 on a 5-game road trip, giving up a lot of points. So they had a 4-game losing streak, and they finish it off with Utah and Portland. Utah's obviously, they're not competitive, but Portland can be. And they've had a pretty good second half of the year. That's a good win for Cleveland, particularly without Mitchell. And it's just a good feeling to get on that flight and head back home after a 5-game trip, winning the last 2, because there was a lot of chatter starting to circulate about the Cavs and what you watched all year. And, oh, here it comes. And there's no way they can beat Boston, and like all of this stuff. And I'm not saying a win over Portland gets everybody back on that mindset, but it was important that they finished the trip off the way that they did. And now they go back and they need to keep this momentum going now. It's amazing that this lead has shrunk all the way to 5 games over the Celtics, because the Boston just, they won like 11 out of 12. So they continue to like eat away at it. At the exact same time, Cleveland took a dip, because at one point that was a double-digit lead. Now they're down to 5 games. They're not in danger of losing the 1 seed or anything like that. But I do think this recent spell, Adam, cost them the shot at overall number 1 seed in home court throughout the finals. If they were to get there, I think Oklahoma City is going to get that now.
Yeah. I want to ask you one question. I didn't prep you for this, so I'm kind of put you in on the spot, but one guy who's having a breakout moment right now is Deni Avdija on Portland. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, but the way he plays, he's enormous. He's like 6'9". They put the ball in his hands, and he almost plays like a Josh Giddey, Shea hybrid. Like, he just gets to the rim off of these drives. Some of them are crafty, but he's just such a big body. And I don't know. I'm like when we think about the Portland Trailblazers, what is their young core? Deni Avdija right now might be the like center of their core. If you project forward, who's going to be the best player? He's just really good right now at a lot of different things, and he's tough to guard because of his size.
Yeah, and I think he's a guy that in Washington was the 9th pick. People were very unfamiliar with him. They weren't happy with the pick at the time. Talking about the fan base in Washington and in general the way that pick was regarded. Yet, and he's 24 years old now. He's been in the league a while, but he wasn't the offensive force right away that at the 9th pick, people expect. And so as a result, it kind of felt like, what did we get here? Just like a decent rotational player. He doesn't feel like that to me anymore. You look at what he's done this month for them, 23 points, 10 boards, and 5 assists. Those are his numbers in a 12-game sample size in March, and finished off February similarly. But really, just look at this month, 48% from the 3 on high volume attempts, taking almost 6 a game. So he has completely broken through offensively in this league. And I love the way what you said about it. He is just an all-around, really talented player. He's smart. He helps you in a lot of ways, scoring, rebounding, playmaking, great size defensively to give him versatility. Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up, man. He's a guy can I claim him, by the way?
Are you? Oh man, he was free. He was available. That's a great guy. That's a great guy to claim.
You actually should have just instead of just
there we
go. Let's go. Ring it up, baby. Ring it up. Because you could have just.
I let that one slip.
You set it up too much. You could have just grabbed it. You could have just grabbed it. Let's go.
That's a great guy. That's a great guy to take right now. That's a perfect my guys.
And I think because of what we just said. You know how this works. I think I may have claimed him right before he would have been ineligible.
Yeah, for sure.
He's that close. If he has an April or the rest of his month in April, similar to what he just did in March, I think he would have been out of reach at the end of the year. He would have been able to be eligible to be a guy. He is though now, and I got him.
It's true, man. That's a great pick. He will graduate, though, by the end of the year. I think you're right. Another game here, Thunder 121 over the Kings 105. One of the things, I got 2 notes on this one. One thing, we get a lot of Thunder fans who say, you only talk about the Thunder when they lose. It's because it's the only time it's a story. They beat everyone, and they win so easy. They win so comfortably, and they never lose. That when they lose, that's the story. I'm so impressed with them. First note I have for you, we talked about early in the year how much they were using Chet Holmgren off ball. He gets injured, he comes back, and they hadn't been using him that way. They used him that way a lot last night, just running off a pin. It's almost like they're experimenting. They're getting ready for the playoffs. I wondered if they were going to be able to open up Chet's offensive game a little bit more, let him dribble, let him come off of screens and try to score. If they are starting to do that and can perfect it by the time the playoffs roll around, which I think they can, they seem to pick up new skills very, very quickly. To me, it actually meaningfully impacts their chances. I know they're a 1 seed and they're going to win 70 games. This meaningfully impacts their chances, Chet being able to be this offensive option where you have to have a big man chase him around the court off screens.
I love that, and I think they're getting more creative the longer they have these 2 guys together with Hartenstein and how they can utilize Chet. One of the things that stood out to me about this game, I think it's a very simple statement with the Oklahoma City Thunder. If they make threes, they're not going to be beat. And that's just the way I view them. They made 19 for 32 last night. I mean, 60%. They're not going to shoot like that very often. And they're not a super high volume 3-point shooting team. It can be the one Achilles heel for them. They have addressed the one from last year, which was they were getting mauled on the glass. They were not big enough. Chet Holmgren, as their lone big, was getting thrown around a lot. As good as he is defensively, he couldn't stand his ground when the ball was in the air against stronger guys. And he would get pushed under the rim, and it would create offensive rebounding opportunities for teams. Last night, they mauled the Kings. They gave up 5 offensive rebounds to the Kings, and Sabonis is back playing. He had 1 offensive rebound in the game. They gave up 5 total because of the board work of the 2 bigs, and they win the board matchup by 16. So they answered that. So now, okay, what other Achilles heel do we have besides lack of overall collective winning experience in the playoffs?
Right.
Which last year they won a round, then lost in the second round. They don't have that. I agree with that. But they look ready to answer that. More importantly, when they make threes, I don't think anybody's beating them this year.
Yeah. They're amazing. And here's the other take I have about them that just shows how amazing they are. They did not have J-Dub last night. They did not have Case and Wallace last night. they still run 9 deep playing guys, and they're all playable. They're all good players. They all have positive impacts. The other night, they start Alex Caruso. Last night, they play Kenrich Williams as the starter. Here's my take, Legs. I don't know who's cut out of their playoff rotation, because in the playoffs, you have to imagine they're going to go to 8, maybe 9. They have 11 playable guys. And the guys you're talking about cutting out would be like Kenrich Williams. He's good. He does a lot of good things for you. Is it Isaiah Joe or, I just don't know who it's going to be, because whatever name you bring up, you're like, well, that guy's too good to not play.
It's a good problem to have for Mark Daigneault, but it can't be easy on a night-to-night basis. The one thing that I think he has going for him, I really genuinely believe in looking at their team and being around their team and calling their games and kind of just watching them interact with each other. That's a team that every one of those guys is willing to sacrifice some of that stuff to win. Yeah. And so on a given night, it might not be you, and it might not be once he makes up his mind, like that first game of the playoffs. These are my 9, which means there's a couple of guys that have played important roles that might not get minutes at all or little minutes in that game. That doesn't mean that's going to be the case by game 4 of that series. Maybe it's 2 other guys that he goes to. And I think that's where he's so good at the pulse of his team. And he's created an environment where these guys have put it all to the side to win. And so it's a tough decision some nights, but when the players are bought in to whatever is in the best interest of the team, man, you got like a coach's dream situation, and I think that's what Daigneault has.
No Wiggins, by the way, too. So that's another guy you throw into the mix and say, is he going to get a DNP in a playoff series? Not because he's not good, but because they just have too many guys. It's kind of crazy, man. That Thunder team has so many good players, and they all understand their system. Last one I have for you, the Knicks beat the Mavs 128-113. Mavs, of course, did not have Anthony Davis. They elected to play him against the Nets the night before. So this game, I think, is not that interesting on intrigue, but it is interesting in that it's another game this season with 2 players on the same team getting a triple-double. Karl-Anthony Towns and Josh Hart both get triple-doubles. Josh Hart sets a Knicks record for most triple-doubles in a season, which is kind of wild. The double triple-double, man, that's in vogue these days.
It is, and it's like, Josh Hart, his rebounding prowess for his size and position are really absolutely, it's one of the most unique things in the NBA. And I don't know where the Knicks would be without Josh Hart. Because of everything that he does for them. And think about a guy that's that productive, and I don't think they've ever called a play for the guy since he got to New York. He doesn't need them, and he still is that productive. Cat was great in this game. OG Anunoby had 35 points. Getting it all done without Brunson. Continue to wait on him. That's the big key. But, as I was watching this game, I was thinking about the Mavericks and thinking about in April, which is coming up here pretty soon, when the Lakers come to town against the Dallas Mavericks. Luka Doncic is returning to Dallas soon. And, do you think he's going to take the same approach that Jimmy Butler took last night?
Man, I knew we'd circle back to this.
I don't think so. Do you think Luka is going to downplay it to that extent and then come out and take points. One shot in the first quarter? Luka Doncic takes heat checks the first trip up the floor every night. It's the greatest quality about the guy. It cracks me up every night. Well, let me just tip my toe in this water, see what the temperature is. And so that night, I have a feeling, he might want to do something a little different than Jimmy Butler did last night in Miami.
That's hilarious, man. All right, we're going to get to our shout-outs now. We do this every single week where we give a player a shout-out. Pick one player who we just think deserves a little bit of recognition for the week that they just had. This is presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. My shout out this week, I talked about him on the show yesterday. Coby White is averaging 30 points per game in the month of March. He has 2 Player of the Week awards in the month of March in a row, this week and our last week and the week before. The guy it's funny, he's only shooting 36% from 3. It feels like he's shooting 136% from 3 at the moment. He's playing hard. What are the Bulls season all about? Well, he's turned it around and given them something to be just excited about. Coby White's been incredible, and he's one of the more fun guys to watch, just on like pure fun.
What's going on? Real quick, I want to ask a follow-up on that. What the hell has gotten into the Bulls, besides Coby White playing great? Like, are they like not like the scariest, non-important team right now to play in the league?
Portland. What's funny about this year, Legs, is that I think Portland fits into that category, and they're really tough right now. Chicago fits into that category. So there have been a couple teams that earlier in the year I thought Toronto, Brooklyn, they've had these runs. The teams that are like don't have anything to play for are still a tough out on any given night, which is I find just interesting.
The numbers they've put up against some of these teams and some of the wins they've had, it's remarkable, man. And again, they're not a threat to anything in the East, but it's again on certain nights, damn, they could put up big numbers. Mine is going to be, I'm looking at a guy in the Eastern Conference that's on a team right now that's hot, and they've got, for them, this opportunity now with Damian Lillard going out. It's interesting the way this has opened up. Legitimate shot at the 4 seed with Indiana. I'm going with Aaron Nesmith. He missed some time earlier for them, and it was an obvious drop off in their toughness when you'd watch them. He represents their perimeter toughness. He takes on the challenges guarding the best guys, but then the scoring has always been kind of like, okay, man, if he gives you supplemental scoring, great. He's averaging just under 20 points a game his last 6 games. So when you add that onto what he's doing from a physical standpoint on the perimeter for them every night, he is so valuable to their team, even when he doesn't score. When he does score, you get this 5-game winning streak for the Indiana Pacers at exactly the right time.
I like it, man. That was definitely an under the radar pick. So I like it. Shout out Aaron Nesmith. Real quick before we get out of here, there are some good games tonight, including one you're calling. You're on ESPN tonight on the call for a little Celtics Suns. No Jason Tatum. So this game might actually be very interesting with how Phoenix playing. What are you looking for tonight?
Yeah, but Phoenix, like showing some life, man. It's like they, somebody took the defibrillator to them. They were laying on the table, and all of a sudden they popped up, and they're like, "Oh, we're good. Let's go play, man. Let's fight for this thing." Because Dallas gets Anthony Davis back unexpectedly. I didn't expect that. So now it's like, oh wow, okay, we're in this dogfight just to get into the play-in, and Dallas gets him back. Well, we're gonna have to wake up, and they have. They've played harder. Durant's been great here over this last stretch. He had 42 in a game. He had 38 in a game. But Booker is the other part of that. He had a 41-point game during this 4-game winning streak. But more importantly, the thing that's impressed me the most about this 4-game winning streak, Devin Booker's playmaking is through the roof right now. Through the roof. He had a 12-assist game, an 11-assist game. And it's not just like, cookie cutter stuff where he reversed it to a guy for a 3. He's getting downhill off ball screen, and he's making very difficult passes, whether it's he's thrown lobs to Ryan Dunn on the downhill, like a Luka type play where Ryan Dunn comes streaking in from the corner. He's thrown kick out threes to the opposite side of the floor when he's penetrating. He's made some incredible passes in transition, like touch passes. His playmaking has gone off the charts. And maybe it coincides with Bradley Beal not being out there. So it's like more definitive. They need Booker to be that more, particularly when Durant's rolling. He can focus a little bit more on the playmaking because he's had some, mediocre scoring night, 17, 16, but the playmaking is what's standing out to me. So I can't wait tonight to see this version of them, playing harder, Durant rolling, Devin Booker taking on more of a playmaking and leadership type role for this team against Boston. Even though they probably won't have Tatum, it looks like, but still, this is now I'm very interested in this game. And for a couple of weeks, I was kind of like, oh man, what's that going to be? Boston and Phoenix, the way Phoenix looked, they've turned it around, at least right now, and they're fighting hard to get into that play-in and secure a spot and give themselves an opportunity to advance.
It's kind of a good story. I mean, they've been a bad story all year, but it's them in Dallas. Dallas with Anthony Davis back. Sacramento is free falling. They've lost 4 in a row. They had this play-in in the bag, and now I personally think they're going to be the team that falls out. And if you get Dallas versus Phoenix, I mean, I don't know how much you caught of Anthony Davis's return the other day, but I just buy their defense. I don't think they're going to be a great team this year, but if you told me that it was Phoenix versus Dallas in a play-in, I'd say, man, that's a tough one because Dallas is going to make you work for every bucket you get. What do you think about that three-team race between Sacramento, Phoenix, and Dallas?
The way Phoenix is playing right now, I like Phoenix a lot, but it's so rare to watch them play with this level of competitive edge. The word I used a lot for them this year was lifeless. That's what I felt like when I either call a game or watch them on TV. Lifeless. They didn't look like they cared that much about each other. Like, and that's important part of the fight. They didn't look like they were digging Mike Budenholzer too much. Like, that's an important part of the fight. They seem like they found some of that right now. And one last thing I want to point out about them. They've changed the starting lineup a little bit here. And Colin Gillespie's been starting for them. And he's not playing a ton of minutes, but he is so smart and steady that they've given him extended run. He had a couple of games off the bench that he helped them win. And now Budenholzer's rewarded him with more minutes. He's been starting. But the bigger factor is Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn was a guy that came out, first round pick. He came out, everybody talking about, man, this dude's perimeter defense, this is like an all-league caliber defender down the road. He's that good defensively. Now go be a 3-and-D guy. Everybody thought he couldn't shoot. He shot lights out in preseason. He shot pretty well at the start of the year. And then he went 3 months and he couldn't make a three-point shot. So they couldn't play him as much. They couldn't justify the minutes even with the defense. Guess what? He's starting now. And he is making shots at a really high rate. And it's so important because it allows Budenholzer to go longer stretches with him, and they need his defense. So he's been a major factor also in this winning streak. And I'm looking forward tonight to see his progress.
Yeah, he really has been interesting. And I have to imagine guys like that, when they go through shooting slumps, when you get the vote of confidence, one starting, but also just, I think the Suns are playing a more coherent brand of basketball. Role players, when they know when and how their shots are coming, it's just easier to make shots. And I have to imagine in the middle portion of this year, role players didn't know when the shots were coming. It was tough. I wonder if clarity, I mean, you could probably speak to this. Watching them play, Booker's passing, they just seem to know what they're doing. And I have to imagine that helps guys like him to be like, oh, okay, I'm about to get a pass here.
Oh, definitely does. There's no doubt. It was chaotic, to say the least, most of the year in Phoenix. They have found some level of offensive coordination that allows role players to feel more comfortable, because you have a better idea when you can anticipate certain action leading to something, and rather than it just being a random act, and you find yourself not anticipating that you were open and now you are, or you don't get the ball when you were open. It affects you mentally. It affects your rhythm, especially young players. And they have, they've been able to conquer that, at least in the short term. It's not a bad winning streak either. I mean, Toronto's not very good. Chicago, we just mentioned, puts up numbers that they won that game in a shootout. And then they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Milwaukee Bucks in their last two. Yep. Those are two good wins, because even without Lillard, like, Giannis is bringing it every night. So you got to show up and play. And that game was a little bit lower scoring. It was more of a defensive-minded game, and they still won that game. So this is a good sign. And their schedule the rest of the way is brutal. Real quick, though, go over this. Boston tonight, at Minnesota, Houston, at Milwaukee, at Boston, at New York, Golden State, Oklahoma City. They finished the year with San Antonio and Sacramento. But those next 8 games,
those are tough, man.
Brutal, with 4 of them.
And they finished with Sacramento. It's possible that game.
Last game of the year is at Sac.
It's possible that game is for all the marbles to get in or not for the play-in, which would be great. I would love it if it came down to that last one. All right, we had a couple super chats. James, what do you got for us? Zach Manley says he gives us $1.99. No message. There you go. Just $1.99 tip. Legs. Mr. Exquisite Nugget says, Lillard injury like Wemby. How rare is this for real? It's very rare. I mean, we talked about it. It's a very rare, very, very rare one, but seems to be less so over these last couple of years. That's all. All right, hit that outro music for us, James. We are off tomorrow. Legs, you can listen to him on ESPN tonight for that Suns-Celtics game. Should be a very good game. We're off tomorrow, but we are back on Friday, so we will be back for one last show this week. We appreciate everybody who tuned in. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. If you miss a show on YouTube, you can always listen to us on our podcast app. You can listen to us on YouTube as well, but you can catch us out there. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. We'll see you Friday.
Silly like the mayor.